What's up, guys? Back at it again. It's Pat Whalen with yesterday's news. Today is Tuesday, August 16th. I didn't have to look anywhere to know that. I got you right here. For those of you who are just joining us for the first time, this is the second episode in a daily video I will be putting out on weekdays called Yesterday's News. Again, this is not rocket science, people. The show is called Yesterday's News. What do we talk about? Yesterday's news. I talk about today, what happened yesterday, because I don't have the time or the mental capacity to keep up on it as it happens. I need a day to catch up. Hashtag not a journalist. I don't know if that'll catch on. So let's get into it. Tuesday, August 16th. What's the first story, Pat? Well, I'm glad you asked, Pat. I'll tell you now. This article from the Chicago Sun-Times. Thank you very much for the article, Chicago Sun-Times. Map shows Dems, GOP alike feeling heat from spending cuts. If you watched yesterday's episode regarding Monday, August 15th, then you know that there was a budget impasse this past July that made it so that no full state budget was passed. So a lot of these nonprofit organizations that get funding from the state, they were kind of left being like, how are we going to pay for stuff? This article has to do with the ramifications of not having a full state budget and all those months where these organizations didn't have any funding to speak of in the first place. The reduction in payouts naturally translates into fewer services provided for mental health, homeless prevention, drug rehab, teen support, and senior programs, to mention just a few. It also has resulted in layoffs by human service providers. So as I mentioned yesterday, a lot of these nonprofit organizations are faced with, well, we can either take the money that the state has finally given us and offer half as many services as we normally do, or we can hire back all those people we laid off. That's a tough choice to make. Illinois Partners for Human Service, a group of 850 organizations operating in the state, released Monday an interactive online heat map to identify the specific effects of state spending reductions. The reason that this map was drawn up by Illinois Partners for Human Service is that they wanted to show this is not a partisan issue. It's not just Democrats who are affected by these cuts. It's not just Republicans either. It's not just the city, and it's not just the suburbs. It's everybody. Everyone across the board is affected by these cuts, and they're not good. So they wanted to show that with the data. So instead of relying on anecdotal stories to make its case, the group crunched information provided by the State Department of Human Services and Department on Aging to calculate the impact by county and state legislative district. For example, one of the biggest hits from the Department on Aging spending reductions was in the district of Senator Matt Murphy, Republican of Palatine. You may remember him from yesterday's episode. This gentleman was a vocal supporter of Governor Rauner and his turnaround agenda that caused this whole budget impasse mess in the first place. Well, guess what? Murphy, who announced his resignation last week, saw his district experience a steep $54 million drop in spending by the Department on Aging. That's a 41% drop. So the residents in his area who rely on these services are probably taking a serious hit here. Judith Geffner, our friend of the show, who I mentioned before, from the Illinois Partner of Human Service, she says that when the state pulls its funding, the organizations that provide these services, quote, have no other way of being able to make up that money. That's a huge problem, and we need to pay attention to this as it goes on. If only there was some Daily Digest, you know what I'm going to say. Yesterday's news, baby. Second story of the day. This one from the Better Government Association, also known as the BGA, a great resource for what's going on, stuff that misses the headlines for local news. This headline, Teachers Pension Fund makes multi-million-dollar mistake. Ooh, that doesn't sound good. So what's going on here? For 2 years, the Chicago Teachers Pension Fund used incorrect dates to calculate retirement benefits, a mistake that resulted in $2.78 million in overpayments for more than 200 retirees. So these teachers were receiving checks in the mail for their retirement benefits, way more money in some instances that they were promised in the first place. I personally wouldn't say anything, but some of them did. There's a quote from one woman in the article that says, I just could not understand it, she said. I had been calling. I had been asking the pension fund for a whole year. What is this money for? This woman is much more honest than I am. But that's teachers for you. As a result of the error, the fund miscalculated benefits for 234 retirees who were wrongly given lump sum payments ranging from $566 to $217,185 a person in back pay from 2012 to 2014. That's a lot of money. With $10.7 billion worth of assets, CTPF is only 52% funded, according to its 2015 annual report. A minimum funding of 80% is generally considered healthy. So not only do they have less money than they should, they mismanage the money that they already have. Look, I don't want to nitpick here. I'm pretty bad with money myself, but guys, this is for teachers. I mean, we need to take care of them, right? Because otherwise, they will send your kids home with pixie sticks, they will make your after-school life a living hell. They hold power. You need to treat them right. Now, even though they're missing a lot of money in this pension fund, they should have more. Mayor Rahm Emanuel recently committed to a $250 million property tax hike to shore up money specifically for the teachers' pension fund. So this, to me, is a great example of tax and spend. I mean, you got to tax people, which sucks, but that money goes towards great causes like paying for retirement of teachers. And let's be honest, this is probably one of the first times we've ever heard of teachers getting more money than they were supposed to get. Am I right, teachers? By the way, our September episode of Good Evening with Pat Whalen, all about education. We're going to be talking about teachers possibly going on strike. We're going to be talking about school funding, all that great stuff. So stay tuned for details on that. So we've talked about the ramifications of the budget impasse. We've talked about the teachers' pension stuff that's going on. What is our third article of the day, Pat? Well, this comes from Cranes, which is a great resource for stuff that's going on in economics and business. I am not good at that stuff, so I pay special attention to Cranes. Shout out to Cranes. What up, Cranes? Industry rediscovers the other Chicago. What's going on here? Well, developer Clarius Partners is proposing a $43 million industrial/retail project for 21 acres of vacant, city-owned land in the North Lawndale neighborhood on the west side. According to plan documents, the 380,000 square foot complex at Roosevelt Road and Costner Avenue would bring 380 jobs. You know the Tale of Two Cities thing. It's a book. I haven't read that, and that's not what I'm talking about. Not a journalist. The article says, many emphasize that large areas of Chicago have seen little benefit from an economic resurgence concentrated in a cluster of neighborhoods around the Loop. Outlying neighborhoods struggle to attract jobs while we celebrate McDonald's headquarters moved to the West Loop. Another thing that just happened recently, yesterday, Monday, August 15th, Mayor Rahm Emanuel went to the brand new opening of the corporate headquarters of Motorola, which will be gracing the outlying neighborhoods of downtown Chicago. So we have the new McDonald's downtown corporate location. We have Motorola. So these outlying neighborhoods need a little love. This might be an example of that going in the right direction. However, since this is just one example of a neighborhood getting that love that we would so much like these neighborhoods to see, this Tale of Two Cities thing may not be going anywhere for a while, especially with some other headlines that we've been seeing lately. Gelato? Really, Gold Coast? Did I miss anything? Have I gotten anything wrong? Am I basically plagiarizing content from other news sources? Please send me an email at besteveningever@gmail.com. I'm Pat Whalen. This has been yesterday's news, and come back tomorrow when I'll talk about today. Peace.